Today I will be showing you guys how to do a Mazda Millenia ECU swap on a 1994 Mazda MX6 using this on a turbo application. The main reason for swapping a Mazda Millenia ECU is because it has slightly different fuel maps, and the biggest thing is that it allows you to use a mass airflow sensor instead of a volume airflow sensor, which is much less restrictive and a lot more accurate as far as its readings. It doesn't go to the open loop maps, the set fuel ratio maps. It doesn't go to those at like 50% throttle like the volume airflow sensor does. It meters air a lot more and a lot more efficiently, and it's just all around better. So that's why you would do this. Because the 94 Mazda MX6 is an OBD1 ECU, part of it is going to be a OBD1 to OBD2 ECU conversion harness that will also come with a diagnostic port. Then you're going to have your volume airflow to mass airflow sensor conversion with an intake air temperature sensor, your mass airflow sensor, and the ECU from a Mazda Millenia. I got all of these parts from the wonderful Scott DeGrellis. You can find him on Wiring by Scott or Wiring by Scott DeGrellis Wiring, something like that, on Facebook. He does a wonderful job. Very happy with the quality of the work here. This is the first time that I've attempted anything with the ECU, so this is just going to be a video showing me poking around, and I'll let you guys know how I find my way through this project. I know the basic direction that I need to go and the basic steps I need to take, but I'm sure probably going to mess some stuff up, but I'll bring you guys along for that journey. Yeah. Per the instructions from the Haynes manual, before removing the ECU, you should unhook your negative battery cable to take the power out of the electrical system. It says for reasons like you don't want your airbag to deploy because that could kill you and stuff like that, but just to be safe, go ahead and unhook your battery. To remove the ECU, you're going to have to remove the dash. That's the trim all the way up over here, the radio bezel, and the ECU will sit right behind there, up in there. So that's going to be fun. Play around with getting all of that off using screwdrivers and screws or whatever. I'll let you guys know what I find. Alright, I did not have to undo all the dash. I just used a screwdriver and was able to pop this out. And I believe if I unscrew this shifter knob, that I should be able to pull everything out, because I'm going to try and show you guys. Because this is loose. This is, it's moving around. Alright, I'm going to try and get that off. With a lot of unscrewing, I have removed the shift knob. That was actually really freaking easy. With that off, all this just popped right off. And there is a plug on the back of the cigarette lighter that you just have to unscrew. So I unplugged those things, and there's two bulbs and one's a plug for the cigarette lighter, but that's everything off. I'd recommend taking the change out of your ashtray because it will spill everywhere. That's pretty much what you're dealing with down there. Lots of space, but you're basically going to unplug that harness, plug in your conversion harness, and put the ECU back in. Let's see if I run into any little snags. There are two little screws right there and one on the other side, and I believe if I unscrew those, I should be able to pull this entire ECU out. But to start, I'm going to unplug this yellow plug, connect to the ECU. Be careful not to pull on any of the wires, because you will kill yourself if you break anything wire-wise in here. It's going to suck. These are the bolts are 8mm, and then you can get them with a Phillips head screwdriver. Those bolts are out, and it should just slide forward. Awesome, that was so easy. So that was really easy. Literally just 2 bolts and it came out. That's what it looks like inside. Delve into the engine. Oh, it's like a hallway in there. But that literally, like, if I was rushed for time, that would have taken me like, a minute to get to this point. Now we're just gonna install your conversion harness, and the tricky part's gonna be, I guess, figuring out where I want to put that OBD2 diagnostic port. So this is the ECU conversion harness. The gray end is going to plug into those yellow plugs on the car, and the white end will plug into the new ECU, KL-L5 versus the KL-55. I'm going to go ahead and plug in the conversion harness now. So there it is, all nice and plugged in. Some free advertising for a pile of RD1, which is Scott DeGrellis. Does an amazing wiring job. Now this end is going to plug into the new ECU, and I'll figure out somewhere to put that diagnostic port. Before I swap over this ECU, I'm going to need to move the mounting hardware from this ECU onto the other ECU. So that should be pretty straightforward, just some bolts, some nuts, screws, whatever. And then swapping it over to the other one, since they're both from Mazda K-Series engines and K-Series cars, they should just swap right over. Mounting hardware off the old ECU, about to go on to the new ECU. Alright, one problem I've run into is on the original Mazda ECU, the MX6 ECU, there's holes on the side and a section where holes are on the front, versus with the OBD2 ECU from the Millenia, has holes on the side and holes on the side. Now only one bracket works like that, the other one has the holes there, so I don't know if I should just attach the one bracket or take this and cut it, because it's the same bracket. If I should take it and let me show you that. If I should take it and just drill the holes, because it's the same thing right over there. Maybe I'll take a trip to a junkyard and get another one of these. That's probably what I'll do. So for now, I'm just going to install it with one of the bracket holders on it, and then I'll have to get the other one from a junkyard or make my own or something, because this one wants to attach to the front, but there's no holes for it to attach to. Alright, now I'll have to go install it on the car. Now to plug these ends into the ECU and slot it back into its place. Come on. Huh. There we go, she was just a little tricky. So there's one open space. I'm assuming that's for the automatic transmission cable, because all these cars are automatic transmissions. But it's just an open spot. I don't have anything that plugs in there. I'm going to go check my other sensors just to be sure, make sure that there's nothing that plugs into that. Since I do not have any other cables with me, and I know Scott would not screw me over with this conversion harness, I am forced to assume that that is for the automatic transmission cable. Something to do with that part of the ECU that needs to control the automatic transmission. There are the wires, I guess. But now I just got to slot this back into its place. There's a little hook thing on the ECU bracket that you swapped over, and it has to go into a little hole. And when it gets there, you don't think it's lined up because it doesn't want to go forward anymore, but you just have to look, make sure it's lined up, and then force it through. And then go ahead and put your bolts back in. The ECU is back in the car. I had to unplug the plugs because I couldn't get the angle on there, but so you're just going to have to put the ECU in before you plug it in. Boom! In! And then that can run somewhere. Let's see. Yeah, it can run right there. It's a good spot for it. So this looks really messy, but this was really easy. And that's your Mazda Millenia ECU swap. Now you're just going to put your trim back on, find a nice place to mount the OBD2 port, and then we get to move to the engine bay. So this is what it looks like with the trim back on. All nice and normal. Everything works. Even got the diagnostic port just poking out the side. I'm actually kind of happy with that. It's nice and tight in there. Just chilling, hanging accessible. But that's the ECU in the dash. Awesome, all mounted up. In the engine bay, you're going to be swapping your volume airflow sensor for your mass airflow sensor. This is as simple as unplugging it, plugging in the conversion harness, and swapping over the new sensor. So here's the comparison of the mass airflow sensor and the volume airflow sensor. The volume airflow sensor is very constricted, has this cone, not much room for the air to go through, and the problem with this, I'll try and focus this a tiny bit. The problem with this setup is that once that plunger is all the way down, which gets even easier if the spring is weak, once the plunger is all the way down, the engine sees full throttle, and it can't gauge the air any more than that. That's 100%. So it goes to preset maps in the engine. Versus with the mass airflow sensor, it has this little cone, much less restrictive. You can get a lot more air through that. And inside it's got these little filaments, and it meters the air, and it reads the amount of air that goes through this to a much higher degree. Like it doesn't bottom out like the volume airflow sensor does. And so that's the side-by-side. They're about the same size, as around 3 inches opening, but it's a lot less restrictive through the inside. Let's see if I can show you those side-by-side. So this is side-by-side. Even when fully open, that's the difference in airflow that you're getting through your engine. Which is one reason why the Millenia ECU mass airflow sensor swap is rated at 4 horsepower across the top and around 10 horsepower in the mid-range of RPMs. That's dyno tested. You can find it on Probe Talk. So now we're going to work on putting the mass airflow sensor into the engine bay. So as part of this conversion kit, we have a conversion harness. This end will plug into the VAS airflow sensor plug in the car, and this end will plug into your mass airflow sensor. I'm sorry, I said VAS airflow, I meant volume airflow sensor. Then this one plugs into an intake air temperature sensor, which I have a brand new one of, and it has a little rubber grommet, because you'll have to drill a hole in whatever your intake piping is, and put this little sensor in there, because this will tell the temperature of the sensor. I believe you put it after the mass airflow sensor, but maybe it's before. I'm not sure. You'll have to look that up yourself. It also has this wire sticking off of it. I'm not sure where that goes to, but I'm assuming that this is a ground because it is black. So there you have it installed in the engine bay. That's your factory harness to what used to plug into the volume airflow sensor now plugs into the conversion harness and goes to the mass airflow sensor, which I have routed before the turbo, because that's how I'm going to run it. It's going to meter all the air before it's compressed, giving you an accurate reading of the amount of air going into your turbo system. It doesn't worry about it being compressed because it's reading it before it gets compressed. You have to run a recirculated blow-off valve, venting the air in between the mass airflow sensor and the engine, so that you don't blow off unmetered air, because then you'll run super rich and stall out. I'm not ready to install everything with this so far, but that's basically it. You guys can take it from there. You'll plug it in there and plug it in there, and then you just have to run your intake air temperature sensor into the pipe somewhere and plug this ground in somewhere. I'll make an annotation if I find out from Scott that that is not a ground. There's a small chance that it may be a positive for a relay, but I do believe it is a ground. If you don't see any annotation on the video, just assume that it is a ground. Check the description for that. I'll post it there. But I have asked Scott, and I'll get back to you guys on that. So, after you've put your trim back together and your intake piping back together and got all this in there, your car should run just perfectly fine. It should take about 2 days to get the hiccups out of the system with the Millenia ECu, because it takes a couple of days to learn, but now you have all the perks of an OBD2 car, including the diagnostic port and all its wonders. You'll have more power, more throttle response, basically everything you could want. And for me, it's going to allow me to control Mazda Millenia S injectors, or in my case, Mazda 929 injectors, because it does read the air before and after the engine, and it can fine-tune that to be able to control both those at idle, which is a huge deal. There are a couple of videos on YouTube by, the guy's YouTube name is White Dart on Probe Talk, White Dart on PT, and that's sort of the method that I'm trying to follow here. But this has been how to install a Mazda Millenia ECu on a turbo converted 1994 Mazda MX6. The process would be basically the same thing on a normal Mazda MX6, 626, whatever. Overall, if I wanted to do this fast and didn't have to take a video of every step, it would have probably taken me like 10-15 minutes. No joke. It's really fast, and I usually take forever. I didn't even cut myself. I'm not even bleeding. But yeah, this is just how I've done it. Feel free to offer a constructive criticism, I guess, if you guys find any. But that's how I did it. Thanks for watching. So I talked to Scott on Facebook, and he says that the black wire that was hanging off of the volume airflow sensor to mass airflow sensor conversion harness with the intake air temperature sensor wiring, the black one is not a ground. It goes to a any 12-volt switch source. So basically, you find somewhere to plug that in where it's going to have power when the key is in the on position.